Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on the world of startups. Today, my guest is from BonitaSoft. We have Mac McConnell. He is VP of Marketing at the company. So, Mac, welcome to the show today.
Thanks very much, Rich. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Why don't we start with the first big question before we go into the slides, and that's, who is BonitaSoft and who do you help?
Yeah. So, BonitaSoft is a business process management software company, and we've got, we can help organizations really across the board, and so we don't really think of companies in verticals per se. What we think more of is corporate departments, and so every company has a process, and that may be a human resources process. It could also be an IT process. It could be a data process. It could be a corporate finance process. And what our software helps people do is to really industrialize that process and make corporate departments more efficient in processing their work.
Well, terrific. So, why don't we go into the overview deck, and we'll save Q&A towards the end.
Okay, sure. That sounds great. So, yeah, Rich, jumping on to sort of slide 2 here, let me give a little background on BonitaSoft. So BonitaSoft actually has a long history, even though we've only been a company for since 2009. Our co-founder and CEO started the Bonita project as an open source project all the way back in 2001. And the goal of that project was to use Java technologies to develop a very rich and powerful business process management suite. And he worked on that until 2009, when he thought that the technology had gotten to a point where we could build a company around it and really start to challenge some of the larger and more established business process management companies like IBM and Oracle and Pegasystems and Tibco, who've been doing this for a long time, but they've been doing this for a long time. So we've done a lot in these short 3 years. So today's June 29th, so we're closing our second quarter today. So it's very busy around here. And as of just a few days ago, we had over 350 customers. We had over 1.5 million global downloads of the open source version of our software. We've got 15,000 active contributors in our community, and we've got over 50 technical and system integrator partners. And so we've really been focusing a lot over these last couple of years on building that community, getting the word out there about BonitaSoft, and then through our open source route, getting the software into people's hands. We have a global presence. Our headquarters is in Grenoble, France, but we've got offices in Paris, Beijing, London, and San Francisco. I'm based here in San Francisco. And we've had some really nice validation on our solution from companies like Gartner, Eclipse. We've been an award winner for them. So we've really been making a name for ourselves over these last couple years. Jumping to slide 3, a lot of people ask, what is business process management? And it's because it gets confusing in the marketplace a little bit. Is BPM a technology, or is BPM a discipline? Is BPM sort of an academic study? And the true answer is it's all of the above. And so there's some really critical things within our software, and we're a software company, but we need to make sure that we are incorporating the discipline and the science and the art and the study of how processes are built and how they are made more efficient by taking certain standards into our software. And for example, there's a business process management notation, BPMN, is becoming a global standard on how you design a process, and BonitaSoft is compliant with that standard. Jumping to slide 4, one of the real important things about our mission is what we like to call democratize BPM. And that really means 2 things. It means, one, we use our open source roots to freely distribute the source code and our application. And it's not just a small little kernel of it. It is a fully operating business process management suite. But there's also another element to it, which is about making it easy for departments to embrace business process management and bring that into their into their organization to make their organization more efficient. And one of the critical elements around BonitaSoft that allows us to do this is these business applications that are built by or sort of launched by the BonitaSoft software. So let me give you an example here. One of the processes we're working on a lot these days is human resources processes. And I mean, Rich, you and I have both worked for companies. We've even worked together at the same company. And onboarding is traditionally always a problem. You bring in a new employee, they don't have their key card set up, they don't have their ID, they don't have their computer or their workspace or the contracts. There's a lot of pieces to onboarding an employee. And we've got a number of companies that are using our solution to create not just a process for onboarding employees, but also a business application that is generated by BonitaSoft that the human resources person just needs to type in some critical information, and bang, that kicks off the process, notifies the appropriate departments that they have an action they need to do. It identifies if there's a bottleneck. If somebody is on vacation, the system is intelligent enough to reroute that task to somebody else who can fulfill it. So the democratization message is one about our open source, but also about making our software easy to use and sort of bring that business application to the end user. We jump to slide 5. Talking a little bit about the benefits. BPM in general is making a big shift in over the last few months to move from being a very technical software that requires a lot of development time and programming time to being much more business friendly and making sure it can connect with other applications that are in your organization where data may be stored, where data may need to be written to for any number of reasons. But with our open source roots, what we allow for is a flexible, transparent, and affordable solution that can be customized as much as our clients want, or with our subscription products, which offer some more features and full support and maintenance releases and all of that, can be very robust and very powerful and power some very, very large processes. For the technical projects, there are two real things that we focus on. One is our modular architecture. So we've got there are really three plus components to BonitaSoft. We've got the Bonita Studio, which is where you design and sort of whiteboard your process. It's also where you can connect to outside systems and put in business rules and business logic that's easily changed if something changes within your organization. Then we've got the Bonita Engine, which is that Java-based engine that powers the processes. Then we've got the Bonita User XP, which is the user portal where you go in and you interact with certain tasks that have been assigned to the end user. And so it's a very user-friendly software, which makes it, one, much easier to get your process up and running in a short amount of time, but also brings down the cost quite considerably because you're not having to do a lot of custom development unless that's your choice. One of the other really important things for the technical audience is being able to connect and interoperate with other systems, and that's really around where data resides, where data needs to be written to, but also within the big data space, what's critical and how we're seeing companies begin to use our software is data manipulation and sort of getting data ready for the analysis and that needs to be done by other systems, or getting it layered into a database in a proper way that it can be used and interpreted. So it's not just business process management is not just about sort of the technical or the human-facing process, but it can also be a data process as well to make sure we manipulate data and get it into the right format. And then the business solutions, and this is a really interesting aspect, and it goes back to those applications I was talking about, But one of the things we're seeing is when companies want a business application that's specific to their organization, and they just choose to custom develop that, what they're ultimately doing is hard coding certain logic into their business application. And if they want to change that logic, it can be quite a bit of development time to make those modifications. One of the nice things about using BPM and BonitaSoft for building business applications is you can change that logic without a whole lot of work within the Bonita Studio. So if something changes within your organization, if the business environment changes and you need to make a change to your process and your application, you can do that within Bonita. Jumping on to slide 6 here, I wanted to talk about, just to give you an example of some of the customers we've worked with, and hopefully this will get people excited and interested in how BPM can apply to their organization. So one of the most fun ones is Konica Minolta, and they were taking way too long to approve contracts within their organization. So the sales team would sell a deal, negotiate a contract with the end customer, and then it would have to go through a whole myriad of compliance and legal review to before it was finally validated and signed. And that could take up to 2 weeks to go through that review, as various versions were being sent by email around the organization. With BonitaSoft, they were able to increase their processing capacity by 30%. And so this really led to setting a standard automated process for them. And originally what they saw was a decrease in the processing time. But now that they've been using BonitaSoft for the last 18 months, they've really seen that they can take on more and more business with the same resources that they have. Another fun one to talk about is the Canary Islands. And they had a very big project to basically move a lot of the basic tasks and processes that their citizens need to do to move that online. I mean, we're seeing that across municipalities here in the U.S. We're seeing it with the U.S. federal government with things like passports. The Canary Islands was no different. And so they really wanted to make their web experience very rich for their citizens. And so they brought in BonitaSoft and allowed people to do things like renew their driver's license, apply for visas, apply for welfare, and do that all through their website. And behind the scenes, what's going on is BonitaSoft is taking that information that's filled out on a form through basically a business application on their website and distributing the required tasks and information to various people behind the scenes. So we jump into slide 7 here. Wanted to give people a better understanding of how Bonita Open Solution works, and it really is a life cycle. And so you start in the design element, and this is the Bonita Studio. So you model your process, you work with your team. Many people think of this as a whiteboard, but it's much more powerful than a whiteboard. It has a lot. Basically, what you're defining is the business logic on the back end. Once you've done that, then you can connect that to all of your systems. You can build the forms that will feed data into your process. And then when you launch your process, what we call run, you launch your process. Now you've got an active running process, and you basically we take the process and place it into a web environment that could be in what people are calling cloud these days. It can be on internal servers. But it's running. Bonita is running that full process there, and so that includes any web interfaces. It includes the Bonita engine that's sort of making the decisions behind the scene. And then one of the critical things about process is you always want to monitor and administer that process. And one of the big things that we are all about today and working on very quickly is how do we better monitor processes? How do we pull out better analytics about the efficiency of a process so that we can give business owners or department owners or technical people the information they need to improve their process. And that's really where we think or we know that business process management going is this continuous life cycle of improvement. The days of set it and forget it are over, and we need to continually be looking at how can we improve those processes. Jump to the next slide. it really does, business process management as a science, as an art, as a discipline, really does come together in the technology if you have a fully featured BPM suite, because you can do everything from designing your process to evaluating the process to improving the process to testing alternate flows on the process. This is something we call simulation, and I think it's one of the most powerful tools that that a lot of BPM suites leave out, is the ability to take what you know about a current process, make modifications, and flow test data through it to see how it might affect certain bottlenecks and things like that. And then being in a production environment, you need to make sure you have a scalable infrastructure so that you can go from, let's say, if we were thinking about a call center, for example, processes that are running in a call center, that you can be able to manage, an average of 50 calls an hour, and then all of a sudden something happens and that call volume boosts up to, let's say, 500 calls an hour. And you need to have a scalable architecture that can expand with that increase in volume for the process. Jumping to the next slide, really wanted to show the breadth of the BonitaSoft ecosystem and how we connect with people and what type of technologies business process management can really sort of integrate by being a layer between a lot of disparate systems. And so, everything from CRM systems, Salesforce.com, Sugar CRM, linking those with ERP systems like SAP. We do a lot of work with Talend in the master data management space, in the ETL space, manipulating data for them so they can get it ready for processing and for integration. LDAP, we have a very deep LDAP and ID management connector so that we can keep people, sort of within that system at large organizations. Email, social, you name it. If you can think up a way you need to connect within your organization, our open APIs will do it. And already out of the box, BonitaSoft comes with 100 connectors. And our community is contributing new connectors pretty much every week or I'd love to say every day, but it's probably not that frequent. Give you a sense of some of the customers we're working with and the breadth of where you can apply BPM to your organization. So, financial services, we're seeing a lot of work there. One example is a company called BBVA, where we are automating their loan approval process, which is sort of was something that was very time-consuming. Now, based on our process, they've been able to cut that down to just a couple days. High technologies I mentioned. Manufacturing is, the traditional process management space, but what we're seeing more and more is just moving over to the service sector. So things like healthcare, telecom, retail, and as I mentioned, the public sector. So there really is just a ton you can do with business process management suites. There's a ton you can do with the Bonita Open solution, and that's really where our roots are. It's about bringing the capabilities of business process management to all the departments in a company, or just one department in a company, small companies, big companies. And that goes back to our open source roots and the community that we're looking to foster around BonitaSoft. So, Rich, that was just a couple-minute sort of overview there. Maybe it was a few more than a couple minutes, but wanted to just share the last slide, which is how you can connect with us. All the traditional locations. We've got a very active corporate blog. And the BonitaSoft.org, our community site, you can get a real sense of what's coming in the software, as well as what our community is talking about and how they're giving us sort of real-time input on where we should be taking the software, what could be working a little better, what is working great, and we should do more of it, things like that.
Well, terrific, Mac. Well, thanks for that. So, question about your customer engagements. It's always a big deal to overhaul IT or process. Are you typically brought in to do one project and then it spreads organically, or what does that look like?
Yeah. How we usually approach it is almost on a department level. So as we talk to either IT people who have been tasked with helping out a specific department, or sometimes it's even the department head or a mid-level manager who's doing some research, is we approach it from the pain point. So if your pain point is it is taking way too much time to onboard employees, and we are losing productivity from day one, we'll come in and approach it that way. So it's not a big sort of corporate overhaul of your IT department and all your processes. One of the nice things about BonitaSoft and where our price point is you really can do this on a department level and make it work for a specific department, and then maybe that cascades throughout the company. But at the very least, we've solved that one pain point.
And Mac, you guys have your roots in open source. Are you still active with providing source code and contributing to that development base?
Yeah, sure are. So you can go to BonitaSoft.com right now or BonitaSoft.org and download our most recent version, 5.7, and have a fully featured BPM. We also work very closely with the OW2 consortium. We work very closely with our fellow open source companies like JasperSoft and Talend and Sugar CRM, to make sure we are very interoperable. But that's not to say that we won't work very closely with the proprietary vendors too. I mean, we work very closely with Microsoft, and it just happens to be who we are. But we're happy. Our big thing is that BonitaSoft needs to connect with everybody.
And Mac, your company is growing. You're at something like 100 people now. Are you using BonitaSoft internally to kick the tires and make sure that it makes sense for business?
Yeah, sure. Of course we do. We got to drink our own Kool-Aid, and so let me give you a couple examples there. We have a professional services organization that works with a lot of our clients, and so when we need to deliver professional services and book certain consultants' time, that's all run on a BonitaSoft project. In the marketing department, we use it we're a global company, so we do a lot of localization and translation work on the marketing content we create. That's all run with BonitaSoft. So it's something that we're believers in and believe it makes our organization better and allows us to talk better with our customers because we are using it ourselves.
Well, terrific. Well, Matt, kind of a wrap-up question here. If I'm sure the companies that are having problems with process know who they are, what's the best way to engage with you guys?
Yeah, so really however you want to. I mean, you'll find, if you go to our website, you'll find a lot of great information under the resources tab, both about BonitaSoft, but also about sort of what problems may be occurring in your organization and how BPM and BonitaSoft can help that. So there's a lot of really rich information there. We just finished a fun blog series, BPM 101, that sort of defines how you should think about approaching a business process project. And then, of course, hook up with us on social media. We're very active in the business process management groups on LinkedIn. Our Twitter feed's very active. So we're an open source company, but we're also really open to our customers, and however they want to interact with us is what's best for them.
Well, terrific. Well, Mac McConnell, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
Well, great. Thanks, Rich. It was a pleasure.
You bet. Good to talk to you again. All right, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on the world of startups.